There's a mistake almost every man makes when hugging a woman. It's so small, so quick, that it goes completely unnoticed. But in the span of a few seconds, it sends a signal to her subconscious that quietly undermines everything else you've built. Most men have no idea this is even happening. The reality is that very few men have ever been shown how to do this correctly. So in what follows, we're going to walk through 3 types of hugs, what each one says about you without you ever opening your mouth, and then a 4th, the one that actually leaves an impression. The 4th is the one almost nobody talks about, and it's the one that separates the men who stay in a woman's memory from the ones who fade the moment they walk away. This isn't about judgment. It's about giving you something you were probably never given. Because here's what nobody tells men growing up. Attraction almost never lives in the big, dramatic moments. It lives in the small ones, the quiet, fleeting interactions that most people don't even register. A hug is one of the most powerful of all those moments. Think back to the last time you hugged a woman, not just the mechanics of it, but what she might have actually experienced. Did her body lean into you or stiffen? Did it flow or did it feel slightly off? Did that moment stay with her or evaporate the instant it was over? Be honest with yourself here. If you've ever sensed something was wrong but couldn't name it, that's exactly the gap we're going to close. Here's the psychological foundation you need to understand before anything else. Women feel first, then they think. While you're in your head calculating the right move, wondering if the timing is good, running through scenarios, her body has already reached a conclusion about you. Not through logic, not through reason, emotionally, and almost instantaneously. This happens because of a structure deep in the brain, sometimes called the limbic system, which processes emotional signals faster than conscious thought can catch up. So by the time you're asking yourself whether to go in for a hug, she's already feeling whether your presence is safe, whether you're grounded, whether you know who you are. A hug bypasses every layer of surface interaction and goes straight to that emotional core. In less than 4 seconds, her nervous system is answering questions she doesn't even know she's asking. Does this person feel centered? Does he feel secure in himself? Does being close to him feel okay? You could be funny, interesting, even genuinely attractive to her, but if the hug lands wrong, her body overrides the rest. And she won't understand why she suddenly feels less drawn to you. She'll just feel it. That's why this matters so much. Now let's get into what actually destroys attraction, starting with the first and most common mistake. The weak hug. You know this one. Arms that barely make contact, a body that stays slightly pulled back, like there's an invisible wall between you. Almost no real pressure. Sometimes it's just one arm draped loosely to the side, that hollow, obligatory gesture that communicates nothing except that you weren't fully committed to the moment. From the outside, it looks polite, maybe even considerate. But what it transmits emotionally is hesitation. It tells her you're unsure of yourself, that you're holding something back, that you don't fully occupy the space you're standing in. Her subconscious reads that not as aggression, not as dominance, just as a lack of groundedness. And attraction cannot anchor itself to uncertainty. It needs something solid to hold on to. The weak hug removes that completely. Now flip to the opposite extreme, and this one can be just as damaging, if not more. The aggressive hug. This is where men who sense their own hesitation try to overcorrect and end up going too far in the other direction. The grip is too tight. It lasts a beat too long. The hands drift to places that don't match the moment. What was meant to feel strong ends up feeling overwhelming. Here's the critical distinction. Intensity is not the same thing as presence. When a hug feels aggressive, her body doesn't read that as confidence. It reads it as a man who doesn't understand space, who lacks awareness, who doesn't pick up on cues. Her system immediately asks a very simple question. If he can't calibrate something as basic as this, what else is he going to misjudge? Attraction disappears in that moment, not because something terrible happened, but because discomfort replaced safety. And once discomfort is there, she closes off emotionally. She might smile. She might say nothing, but the door quietly shuts. Picture this. A man is doing everything right in conversation. He's confident, he's holding eye contact, there's a genuine spark. She's open to him. Then comes the hug. He pulls her in too fast, holds on a fraction too long, and his hand presses somewhere just slightly lower than it should. Not malicious, just miscalculated. In that single instant, everything shifts. She doesn't make a scene. She doesn't say a word. But internally, a boundary was crossed, and now, instead of leaning in emotionally, she's become guarded. He walks away, convinced the night went well. He has no idea the tone already changed. The third mistake is the most invisible of all, and because of that, it's the most overlooked. Call it the ghost hug. Your body shows up, but you don't. You go through the motion of hugging her while your mind is somewhere else entirely. You're rehearsing your next line. You're quietly scanning the room. You're tense, distracted, slightly rushing to get to the other side of it. The hug ends abruptly, like escaping rather than completing a moment. She feels this. Not as a thought, not as a conclusion she reasons her way to, but as a deep, quiet sense of emptiness. Presence isn't measured by what you do. It's measured by how fully you inhabit what you're doing. A ghost hug communicates that she wasn't worth your full attention in that moment, and that feeling doesn't leave when the hug does. It creates an emotional distance that no conversation can repair, because conversation works on the surface. This happened underneath. So what actually works? What creates that experience where she walks away thinking about you and doesn't even know why? This is where everything changes. The grounded hug. And let's be clear from the start. This has nothing to do with dominance or control. It's about being grounded, intentional, and fully present in one small moment. It begins before your arms even move. It begins with your decision. You don't second-guess it. You don't linger in your head. When the moment naturally presents itself, you move. Calmly, without performing the movement. Your feet are steady beneath you, your posture is relaxed but upright, because physical stillness communicates emotional stillness, and her body registers that before you've even touched her. Your arms come around her with purpose. One hand rests between her shoulder blades, creating a quiet sense of direction. The other settles at the middle of her back, not too high, not too low, just present. Your chest connects with hers, not forced, not tentative, just enough to make it real. And then you breathe. This is the step almost every man skips without knowing it. In the moment of physical contact, most men hold their breath. Their muscles tighten. Their body becomes rigid, and that tension travels straight into her. But when you breathe slowly and naturally, your whole body softens. And relaxation is contagious in the most literal biological sense. Her nervous system mirrors yours. If you're calm, she feels calm. If you're settled, she feels settled. This isn't theory, it's physiology. Timing matters just as much. A hug that ends too quickly feels like a formality, a checkbox, nothing with any weight to it. One that lasts too long tips into discomfort. The ideal window sits somewhere between 2 and 4 seconds, long enough for the moment to register, long enough for her to actually experience your presence. And then you release, not sharply, not awkwardly, but smoothly, as if the moment simply completed itself. Your hands might slide gently down her arms as you step back. You hold eye contact, a relaxed expression, a quiet smile, and something stays with her after that. Not the mechanics of it, the feeling of it. Because here's the truth most people never say out loud. A hug is never just a hug. It's a message, a silent emotional transmission that tells her exactly who you are without a single word being spoken. Every time you hug a woman, you're giving her a preview of your energy, your awareness, your confidence, your ability to be present in a moment, or your tendency to drift from it. And she holds on to that feeling even when everything else fades. The conversation, the outfit, the setting, all of that disappears. How you made her feel in that moment stays. Here's a scenario that makes this concrete. 2 men meet the same woman in the same evening. Both are interesting in their own ways. Both make her laugh. Both are attractive to her. On paper, they're equals, but one gives her a weak, uncertain hug at the end of the night. The other gives her a calm, grounded, unhurried hug. A few days later, who is she thinking about? Not because one said anything more impressive, because one made her feel something deeper. That's how subtle attraction actually works. So here's something worth trying. The next time you hug someone, don't perform it. Don't rush through it. Feel it. Stay aware of your body, your breath, your intention. Ask yourself in that moment whether you're actually there. That single question honestly answered will change more than you'd expect. And consider this as a final thought. What if attraction isn't built by doing more, but by being more fully present in the moments that are already happening? Sit with that, because once you really take it in, it doesn't just change how you hug someone, it changes how you show up everywhere.